This is Dave.
And Mackies.
Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio. That's the website name. Where that is home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations you'll find in the chat room. And it's a fantastic place to get your merch in order to support the station. Hey, Mackie, do you know that this is show number 598?
9, 98, 8, 9, 10, 500. That's crazy.
That's all of the crazies right there. I remember, just like Mick Jagger, I hope we're still going next year. I remember that. Did you know that you can catch us on air, even online, and anywhere on your smart device, not just on your PC at home, but you need an app for that. But you know what? Don't bother about any of those things. Thanks, Amiga Logos. In the chat room, you can just sit up. You can sit in a relaxing rocking chair on your porch, weather permitting, and listen to it. Listen to us, maybe, or the station at least, on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. It's awesome. And a shout out to one of my friends who asked me, what is a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio, the other day?
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
Good question. I imagine it to the idea is that it's an oldie, looky, that's not a word, kind of radio that your grandparents would have used. All right. So, but it's a digital radio, and it just sits on your counter. I know I've got a Bakelite version and a wooden version of radios for the AM FM band, and medium wave was one of the ones that they used to have as well. So anyway, moving on, Solaris has just done the show prior to us. She's always got great guests and has great shows, and you know what, tonight she had Zoe by Greystone, Miss B.
She's going to come to our show as soon as we can.
Oh yeah, Solaris will. Yeah, hopefully.
No, Zoe as well.
Oh really? Awesome! Please do. And they had an open topic of ET's magic and anything else we choose to discuss. And she also says, "Have a great show." I hope to have as great a show as yours is all the time, Solaris. And if you don't know who she is, Solaris Blue Raven, you can just access the archives at the station for free. She's got a documentary, she's written a book, she has a show on 2 different stations, good on her. And do you know what? She's so awesome, and we have her on usually at the shows that have 00 at the end. You know, like 100, 200, 300. So we've got a 600 coming up in 2 weeks' time. And let's see if she got some time available to hope the scheduling works. Now, Mackie, I say this every single week, and I think it's really important that everyone understands this from their own perspective. And because I'm broadcasting out of Darkinjung country, how about you today, Mackie?
Iraq country, always. Oh, mostly.
No, could not be always.
Could not be always, you're right. Could be somewhere else.
That's right. And both Mackie and I, as Shiny Side Out and independently of each other individually, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we live or where we broadcast from, and we pay our respects to past elders, past, present, and future. Mackie, did you know? I know you've not been 100%. And I've extended to our audience that you've been okay. It's not life threatening. But you're back.
Yes, sir, I'm back. I'm back. It's all good. There was some unpleasantness. I was blacking out, and I was feeling generally unwell, which is it's never really good, obviously. But it was a bit like that. I gotta say, a bit like that.
I know that you've had COVID recently, and again, because you're not a medical doctor, and we're not providing any. We're never ever going to provide medical advice ever.
That's correct.
Never. Not financial advice. Not medical advice. Do what you want, right? Do what you want. We're just stating our own opinions. So, Meki, in your own opinion, rather than a medical professional's opinion that might have been giving you some guidance, is this something that happens? Do you think it was connected to the COVID?
No, I can give you what my GP said.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Okay, I mean that's a medical opinion.
Yes, it is, but it's not ours.
No, it's not ours. I'm not saying it's ours, but it's a medical opinion, and the answer is yes. He said to me very specifically, and he's actually a relative of my wife's. He said very specifically to me, because my wife blacked out as well. He said that day 10, got to be very careful of apparently. It's day 10, and a lot of people have blacked out on day 10, as it were, and just never really got back from where they went.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, that's a thing that happened, and well, what can I say? It's a reality, as it were. It's a reality, right? So, yeah,
so
no,
I remember, Meki, I remember seeing people on video from in China. There's someone that released video really early on in 2020, where people just fell over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it now.
I
understand. Yes, totally. It was reported at the time in these leaked videos that these were COVID patients, and we made everyone watching it made a ton of assumptions, but it's it could very well have been, because there's no proof and we're not doctors and no one tested the person, no trained medical professionals tested them in the presence of the camera with a single take. No. So the reason why I think it's important to remember right now is, we've been vaccinated, Meki.
That's the truth.
Right, that's the truth, I know, and kept up with everything. So there's a new variant. I forget the numbers, BA dot something or other.
Mate, who can keep up? I mean,
I know, right?
Seriously, what?
Yeah. And this is this. Oh, what's it called? Oh, I should have looked it up, but it's got a name like Eris. I think it is the variant. Eris. That sounds biblical almost.
Oh, damn, yeah, that's not true.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And if you run the same kind of estimation or trending analysis from announcement to when we're all locked in our houses again, it looks like it might be around about the election time in the US.
I think that's about right, isn't it?
It's about that length of time, and I really hope that we're not going back again.
Yeah.
Because what did we learn last time then as a result, I suppose, right?
Well, two things we learned. I mean, we learned about social inequality, but also it wasn't very effective.
That's right.
Or at least it didn't seem effective, right? So this is always it's always a question as to.
Well, because we didn't have actually we did have some countries who played out as controls. So some countries refused to mask and refused to lock down. They just did. Now, were they any better off? I don't think you can equalise it. I don't think you can say it's an orange to orange. I mean, comparing apples with oranges, that's just preposterous. Who would even do that? It's one of my irks, Meki, when they go, it's just, apples to oranges. Yeah, okay, good luck. So you're not a scientist then, no? I suspect, right? No, okay, let's just keep you away from those test tubes. I think the thing that I would like to impart is we're not the ones who came up with that idea.
That's right.
It's coming around. Look, we might be, if this one proves potentially as hazardous or worse than the Delta strain, which there isn't anything to suggest that that is, except it has a different spike protein apparently, and that means it's going to get straight past all of the vaccines, according to science, not me. And that there's a lot of warnings now coming out but I think there was only, the last time I looked, there was only 6 people that had it. So it's really early days, and let's say I think they're calling it a bit too early.
Maybe.
Right,
Just
a little premature there, right? Just a tad. Or, of course, this is the, what conspiracy theorists might use as an example of them radioing ahead their actual plan. Because remember before, it was all kind of reactionary, right? Everything was reactionary. So, oh yeah, it's in this country, and I'm not going to bother shutting my borders. Oh, it's turned up here now for some reason. We just let it happen. Now it's here. Wow, who'd have thought that would happen with international flights happening, Mackie? Right? Oh, gee, that spread fast. Oh, we should probably meet in a couple of weeks' time and discuss what to do next. Next thing, that meeting only named the group of people and set another date for another couple of months before any action was. I'm making a joke, right? So, if we have to allow for, government non-sitting days, right? And we have to rely on let's call them so-called experts, to dictate to our governments in what to do next. I'm not sure that we've got a lot of trust in them now that we've seen all the Senate inquiry Slack conversations, because Slack is the platform, from all of the people that we were supposed to have trusted, who obfuscated publicly that there was nothing to do with a lab-made virus, but that it was all natural. But behind the scenes the entire time, they were saying, just if they find that cleavage site, we're all done for. I'm paraphrasing. It'll cost us our funding if they blame us somehow. So let's all agree to say natural.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because that'll ruin our lab work. And then one of them says, if there's a whistleblower in that lab, we're all done for. And they lost 3 people out of that lab. That's funny.
There was a news story that 3 scientists just, they kind of kicked the bucket, I guess.
They just up and died.
Because that happens all the time. 3 scientists work in the same lab. You work together, you die together. That's just what happens. It's just a thing.
Apparently it happens.
It's unbelievable is what it is.
Yeah. Remember that they did upgrade the lab after, and everyone kept citing in these Slack conversations and publicly that there wasn't any proof that it was a lab leak. And
that's true.
What they were saying was true because there wasn't any records, because the records in the lab were deleted. So they were all within their rights to say those words, and legally they're correct. And there could never be proof to be found that it said it was, unless we examined the cleavage site. I forget what it's called.
The truth is, whatever somebody decides to write down and turn into the history of the thing. When you finish with the COVID thing, I want to make a point on that very thing with a few things I want to share. But what you're saying, unfortunately, is absolutely 100% accurate.
So to give you a segue into it, because I think there's a little bit more to that. So one of my daughters was saying something about, I don't know, there was something at school and some people, and they talked names, and I can't remember a name. And especially if they're going to talk for 20 minutes about a bunch of people, then their friends, I didn't even know who the original people were now in 20 minutes later, right? It's very hard to follow a story after, I think it's 9 minutes, 59 seconds even if it's a slide deck and you're interested in it.
Mhm.
There was a professor that did a statement on that. I'm going to say, so there's a story going on, and then my daughter asked me the magical question, should I lie? And I go, well, are you lying to do a positive thing? Because we call that a white lie. Yeah. And I said, well, look, let's refer to history. So, let's say the bigger the lie, the better. And the more times you say it, the more it sounds like the truth.
That's the truth. Goebbels said that, by the way.
That's right. That's what
The
I
bigger
said.
the lie, the more likely the more often you repeat it, the more truthful it becomes.
There you go. So now, back to you in the studio.
No, look, this is it's really something that goes to the heart of our reality that we create for ourselves every day, and that is created for us and presents itself every day to us, through media, etc., etc. A lot of people think that Elon Musk is really, really smart, right? It's like a genius, what's the word? A polymath.
I thought
Right?
Ivan Reitman was a genius.
A Renaissance man. Now, let me tell you what happens to the actual geniuses in the world, right? The Teslas of the world,
Mm-hmm.
okay? The Da Vinci's, etc., or the Galileos of the world. They're threatened with imminent death, or they are in fact killed, or they are completely stricken from the record, including their achievements. That's what happens to the real geniuses, as it were. Elon Musk, similarly to Bill Gates, in fact, and which is interesting, unlike Jobs or Hewlett and Packard, Elon Musk didn't invent anything. Elon Musk didn't make anything. Elon Musk bought a whole bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, PayPal, he bought into that. And when he bought into PayPal, he said, well, now that I'm buying into it, you have to say that it's all mine. I invented it. I'm now the founder of PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that?
No.
Probably not.
That's
You probably
new to
didn't
me.
know that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the truth. He didn't invent it. He didn't originate it. He had money, family money, and then he bought into it in the contract, which is very good, of course. And the others were no longer allowed to claim to be the founders.
Wow.
He, though, was not the founder, and he didn't invent Tesla. He bought Tesla. But then he had enough money, then he get, for a whole SpaceX, he got a whole bunch of smart people to get in, and he's not a rocket scientist. He doesn't design rockets. He doesn't do any of that stuff. None. But it's presented to us. Bill Gates did not write Windows.
No, he didn't.
Or DOS for that
He
matter.
didn't write it, no.
He did not write DOS. He didn't. Who did? Someone else
Mm-hmm.
whom you've never heard of. Ever. Because, well, essentially...
Because the winners write history, Mackie.
Because the winners write
Yeah.
history. That's what happens in the real world. Thank you very much, everybody. Oh, Mackie, what? What? No, that can't be true, Mackie. Surely that cannot be true. I tell you what, it is. It's absolutely 100% true. And that's how people get to be famous and rich, and they just steal everything. They claim everything, but they build nothing. They contribute nothing. Now, these are smart. Look, get me wrong, they're smart business people. 100%. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. Absolutely. Very smart business people. But that's it. That's all they are. They're business people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not, because we think, oh man, what a great guy, and he did all these wonderful things. Oh, he's such a genius. No. These accomplishments that we give them credit for were stolen. They were stolen. And if not stolen, they were acquired with means other than what you would call ethical. And this goes again back to the point of you cannot become a billionaire. Sorry. it is highly unlikely to become a billionaire without stepping over bodies, without actually spilling blood, even if it comes to that, because that's how empires are built. In business, in real politics as well. Look at any empire ever in the world. It was built on oceans of blood. There's no exception to this. There is not a single exception in the world to this rule. And business empires are the same. Now, the blood is not as obvious sometimes. Okay. But you have to ask yourself, well, how did these American pioneers make their money? How did the British East India Company make their money? How did the British royals become so rich? Etc., etc., etc. And the answer is, you need to understand that nobody gets anywhere without violence. Violence is the ultimate arbiter. I think it was maybe Bismarck or Clausewitz, I can't remember, but for the longest time in European diplomacy, 17th, 18th, 19th century, war was the last step in the diplomatic process. It's just another step of the diplomatic process. You've got, ambassadors go back and forth, negotiating, talking, etc. This and that. But if all of that doesn't get anywhere, guess what? Diplomacy's last step is war. You might have heard of gunboat diplomacy. You know what that meant?
That's right.
The British, actually, I think it was the British, might have been the Americans. They sent gunboats that threatened cities in Asia that didn't want to negotiate with them. They said, we're gonna level you. Either you come to terms with us, or we're going to blow your city to kingdom come. How's that? How do you like that? Would that be good for you? Again, it's not something that was invented by the West. If you look at Attila the Hun or Genghis Khan, Genghis Khan left such an indelible mark on Europe. The entire Slavic race wouldn't exist. Would not exist unless it was for Genghis Khan. Because the Slavs are the direct result of a whole bunch of Asians raping a whole bunch of Europeans. Okay? That's the Slavic race. I'm sorry to say. That's what happened. You got a lot of Asian genetic markers in the Slavic nations. It's just what it is. It's just what happened. Okay? And that's why you've got also certain skull characteristics, etc., shared across seemingly different racial groups. No, we are living in a world that is completely and utterly ruled by all the worst kinds of people. If you look through history, they're the worst.
Oh, and let's say the pinnacle hasn't finished.
We're not even close. So Dave, look to your point though as well. It is around, I guess, the lie, right? Because it's all a lie, all of it. You think you know history? Chances are you don't. That's okay. It's not your fault. Right? It really isn't your fault. No one has ever explained to you what history really is, and you end up with this distorted view of the world or what it is or could be or should be. And no, there's no innocent party. We say we this is going to ruffle some feathers, Dave. Slavery, especially slavery that was perpetrated on the African continent. You say, terrible Europeans, slave traders. And the answer is, yeah, true. But you know who captured, caught these slaves in Africa? Africans. Africans did that.
Yeah, because they were given some payment.
Yes. And slavery is as old as time. Slavery is the best. And for capitalists, even slavery is awesome. It's awesome to make money. You pay nothing. There were huge protests in ancient Rome when slaves came in because they took the jobs of the Romans.
That's right.
What?
What have they done for us lately?
What have they done for us lately? The aqueduct? Shut up, you.
Roads, healthcare.
But ultimately, you have to understand that's where it is. This is where we are, and that's the world we now inhabit. And these are the people we worship. We worship these people. Why? Well, God knows why.
You got to think about that a couple of times before it sinks in.
The royals, the English royals, the worst kind of human beings ever. But anyway, that's my point. Sorry, Dave, that's the point. A bit long-winded, but nonetheless.
That's all right.
Yes,
I think you carried the 15 minutes rather well, Mackie, to be honest.
Nice.
So, I've got to talk about this because look, wow, whatever that word is that's posted about the Lahaina 4K footage in the chat room. Thank you very much. It is on my list to talk about, but before we get there, I wanted to say that there is, from, let's call it, printed time immemorial. So from the first time we printed anything, and it could have been, doesn't matter when it was, but if it was in clay, in Sumer it probably happened then too. But all the way up to now, and we live in despite the internet, we live in one of the highest printed media forms right now that's ever existed, with a reach that's never existed to this point. And that is through the internet and all of these apps that deliver news to us. And it's social engineering at its best now, where before it was kind of just everyone was tarred with the same brush. So you would have news outlets and because that collective consciousness thing of all reading the same thing from the same, then there was two, and then now you've got opposing opinions because you've got people who didn't like that view, now you've got people who like that one, now you've got to write to those, blah 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 blah, right? So you're only ever writing to your demographic, and you can win and lose people along the way, that's fine, but you're still going to do the same thing. And now we have tailored news through social media platforms, tailoring it just for you. Just because you like that kind of thing, that's what you're going to see. So you end up in this, like, if you've ever been a child where who found a tire, like just an abandoned tire, and there's a grass hill, and it could be a large tractor tire or something, and you've rolled down it inside, right? It's a stretch, granted, but and I think I lost my way. But the example was really powerful. That's what it was. It was really powerful. So that so having this socially generated news, bending and twisting you and guiding you now in the media is one of the most powerful platforms we've got. So saying that, it's all about what lies. Again, back to my original point. The lies that we hear from our media platforms and those trusted words that we expect to trust, and then we find out they were all lies. That, to me, is probably the most disappointing thing about keeping your eye on the news and wanting to know what is just about to break. What's the thing just about to break in the news that is new, right? And I'm before the wave, because the wave is after. That's the breaking part of the news. It's already happening. Out of maybe all of the news that I see that hasn't made it to mainstream yet, when they do make it to mainstream, you see what little is left, or how they've twisted that story into being the thing that they talk about. So on either opposing sides of the media platforms. And I'm going to use Fox and CNN as two different examples. So they are easy because they're polar opposites of each other, and they honestly do, I think, with tongue-in-cheek, I'm going to say this, they entertain each other by seeing just how far away from the center they can both be. Right? And I think they do that with glee. So one of the things I wanted to bring up, Mackie, because we've seen Canada on fire, right? We've seen Greece on fire. Remind me if I've missed one.
Turkey, you said?
Turkey is the new one.
Which is interesting, because it's talking about Çanakkale, and I used to go to holidays there a lot. It's near the Dardanelles, which is a shipping line, which the fires actually closed down the shipping line.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I've got the It's the forest fire. I've got a middle screen thing here. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see this is a Reuters clip here. It says forest fires shut turkeys. How do you call it? Dardanelles?
Dardanelles, yeah.
Dardanelles, straight for maritime traffic. That's how intense this thing is.
Oh, yeah.
And I've got to say that when I hear, oh, the fire's really, it's, you know, the most intense. Well, you weren't in Australia for the 2019s,
True.
right? In the 2020s, when it was the worst fires that Australia's had, and the planet has seen as a single event, right? And all these other ones, yeah, they're local and they're bad, and I agree. And we're not trying to outfire you, I suppose, or big up you, but I'm just going to say that as a result of the fires in Australia, we had a science article and research go into what was the true causes of ignition of fires and what was the most likely of all of the outcomes. And Meki, I shared with you some of the intro to each of them. We had, as a result, some really interesting things. So, smoking, when you flick a cigarette out of the car, actually needs very precise conditions for that to then be a thing. For instance, temperature generally needs to be above 27 degrees Celsius and humidity above 22%, actually below 22%. And the cigarette needs to land in a loose fuel bed and quite specific angle, according to Richard Woods, who runs the Wildlife Investigations and Analysis Consultancy, right? The other one is burning off and debris. So if there's a risk of high fire danger, in Australia, we have controls and advice about how you should behave given the certain types of danger, whether it's mild, blah, 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 all the way to extreme, and then catastrophic is the last where they added this one. This is black and yellow. Nature's warning colours, and they said that burning off, it's a regular source of bushfire ignition in Australia, because someone didn't know, right? They're burning off, and embers go floating away, and then start a fire somewhere.
That's right.
Right? Arson, it's actually quite rare, believe it or not. So the motivations for why people commit arson are varied, but it's usually arson is to do with buildings and things like that, and they say it's behind a large number of bushfires, both in Australia and internationally. But they say around about half of all Australian bushfires are caused by arson. Now, it doesn't mean it was initiated by arson, but maybe spread by arson. There's already a fire, someone wants to make it worse, right? Or around the other way. Who knows? But there's another one, railway cause. Railway has its own category, as trains are a surprisingly common source of bushfires. Brake failure in trains can throw out a wall of sparks, sometimes igniting dry vegetation along the sides of the tracks. Didn't know that. Right? Campfires, yeah, we knew that. You don't go camping in extreme or catastrophic fire conditions in Australia. You just don't do it because you'd end up being trapped somewhere in the bush that no one can find you and you're just going to be turned into a cinder. Equipment use, like chainsaws. They say chainsaws. I've never seen anything that would result in a fire from a chainsaw, but I'm wrong, probably. Angle grinders, absolutely. Mowers, hitting a rock, making sparks come out, right? They're all different things you can do. Also, children were categorized as causes of fires, and I'm getting to a point. But that's usually over curiosity rather than malice. They don't really know what they're doing. It just goes out of control, right? Lightning is the most common ignition source in remote areas. So you can have a dry lightning fire where it doesn't rain where the lightning hits. It hits outside of the extent of the downfall from the storm. It can be a couple of kilometers away from the actual rain and hit a dry area that never got wet and spark it. And then that was one of the causes for us here. And miscellaneous. But miscellaneous has industry in it. So you've got different industries. You've got power lines who either in high winds have trees that fall over the lines, causing them to fall to the ground, but they're still alive, and they arc, and they set something on fire. That's one way. Firearms as well, military, blasting, glass refraction. So in the olden days, Mackie, whenever we didn't have PET bottles, we had glass bottles. Glass with just the right angle of the sun, being smashed, being roadside in some debris. The sun could, focus the beam of light and make it a fire. Electric fences, and there's even more. But I have to tell you that story to this other story that I found. And this was a question about this from CBS News. What caused the Maui fire? And it says, I heard I was watching a couple of news outlets, and they mentioned this the other day. An investigation is underway to determine what initially sparked the wildfires, and the cause has not been officially determined. Investigators are looking into whether downed power lines and decisions by Hawaii Electric that were turning power on and off, and that could have also blown some what are they called, transformers.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Now in Australia we had a number of fires that were started by the ignition was started by arcing power lines in the high winds. So if you're in a place in the world where the wind gets above like 130 kilometers an hour or what have you, right? Think about that in miles, maybe 90 miles an hour. The power lines are okay to be hung from their telegraph poles or the power poles, but they're hung in such a way that they don't expect the droop to be able to touch the opposite pole, like the opposite pole of electricity. So, negative and or neutral and active. So they don't expect those to touch. But in high wind, they can be rocking backwards and forwards, and chaos ensues, and they just touch, and suddenly you get a melted array of molten metal come off it, and that can start the fires. Let alone they're above ground, and they're susceptible then to either the poles being knocked over or the power lines being severed by trees falling, which is really common here in Australia. But if you're in a zone that the high winds are going and you get these little brownouts, that's usually the cause for it. In the high winds, the power lines touch, you get little dips in power, and that's totally bad. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But in the end, in Australian bushfires, when we had the cause was determined that it was precisely the power lines, nothing happened. The power company didn't get blamed for it. It was, that just started it. Right, thanks for knowing that. And did anyone get compensated? No, there was nothing. So right now, I saw the video of Biden visiting and getting booed, and they were yelling all sorts of things I can't say on the radio. And then he was talking about developing the new, like this vacant space. And then he went off on a tangent like I've never heard before, trying to, he was really trying to, not that I like him, but he was really trying to be one of the fellas, right? In this grieving audience who have possibly lost children. Because so far, no one knows where the missing children are. They haven't found them.
It's not a few either. It's
no, I know. It's tons of them, right? So he was saying that, lightning struck. Yeah, I know. I'm getting to that, Amiga Logos. So lightning struck a tree that hit the underground pipes that came up to his air conditioning system, and it caused a very small fire in his kitchen or something, right? That was put out. And he said, my family was at risk in my car, my 67 Corvette. But nothing happened, right? To a room full of people who don't even have a house, or whose livelihoods have gone. The entire town is, and not all of the town, but the main part of the town and all the businesses that lent on each other to allow that town to thrive. Financially, and with everything that they provided, it was a really nice fit. Apparently, everyone in the town was lovely. Everyone knew everyone, and it just kind of folded together like a beautiful, I don't know, what a plaited bread cake from Europe, right? I don't know. I had nowhere to go there. So apparently, as you can tell, apparently that's the way the town worked, and it was really nice. And now they're all affected. There's a lot of, those online help me kind of payment things you can donate to people. Be careful. Make sure that you're using the link from the actual person who posted it to be able to do it, because there's some scammers up there saying, "Oh, I live in Lahaina," and they don't, right? Just there's GoFundMe things, so be careful, really be careful. So it comes down to something that Mickey and I have definitely talked about off air, and that is directed energy weapons. If you had the ability, if you had those weapons right now, sure, it's possible they could be used. It's 100% possible they could be used. I would say that nations could be having weather wars right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I say could, I mean do, but could, right? For the AI who's going to listen to, like, read the transcript of what I'm saying, I'm going to say could. So, yes, it is completely possible. Is it? But then you have to ask yourself, well, is there a reason for it? Well, it's financial, clearly. There'd be a financial benefit from doing this. It's a great test.
Oh, phenomenal.
And who would care? I don't think people would use it on their own. I think you'd have to be someone on the other side of the.
You may, but you have to think about the economic upswing from rebuilding.
Yes, I know.
It's because I know it sounds callous, but that's because it is. It's extremely callous, right? These people don't think in terms like you and I do. They think about, well, how much money could I possibly make in here, right? Well, the answer is a bucket load. You could make a bucket load of money.
And I'm not going to talk about the day before the 12th of September, 2021, right?
That's right. Again, people were making bucket loads of money. It's just
all the wars, Becky, as well, are the rebuilding cost.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, first of all, you have to pay for all the ammunition, etc., as we all know. But then, that's billions, and there's more billions when you're rebuilding.
That's right.
And that what Dave just mentioned, those contracts, they were awarded without a process.
There's no non-compete.
No, there was no bidding. Normally, when you have a tender, you go, okay, you're out to market, and then especially government entities have to do that. Didn't happen here. It's all given to Halliburton. Mostly. What a shock.
Well, that company was also part of the rebuilding, was also part of the sales of the weapons.
Yeah.
Munitions. I know. You win on both sides, Mick. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, you winner, chicken dinner.
winner, chicken dinner. Is that typically an Australian phrase?
No, that's an American phrase.
Oh, is it?
100% American, yeah.
Oh, I've heard that in so many RSL clubs, it's not funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's usually with the bingo thing, right?
Yeah, or the raffle. You win the meat tray, right?
That's right.
I want to know if people in other countries have returned servicemen's leagues. Like, it's a building it usually has a bar and there's an eatery, and you can go there. If you can be a member and save some money by being a member, and you get money off, percentage off everything you buy in there. But I wonder. And they'll have a raffle. Yeah, they'll have a raffle for a meat tray, or where we are, there's a meat tray as well as a seafood platters. They're just so good. You live on the coast. It's so good. I've won them so many times. It's not funny because I'll buy like 100 tickets, all in consecutive numbers. So. I get like a really broad swath, and I'll have 6 trays. But anyway, saying that, Mickey, I wanted to say that the Japan released the water.
No.
From Fukushima.
Sorry. They didn't release the water. They admitted that they can't control the non-release.
Oh, I love the sound of that.
So it's not that they're releasing the water because, hey, let's release the water. It's like, we can't stop the release. And then they have
hang
admitted.
on. It does that sounds like when I'm busting to go to the toilet, right?
Yep.
Number ones, and there is no stopping it.
No stopping. When Fukushima first happened, this is now some years ago, right? And they sent people in suicide missions to do what they could to patch it up, etc., etc. Now, the unfortunate thing for the people that went there is that the technology to contain what happened at Fukushima did not exist, and unfortunately, still does not exist. So we are hoping that in the future, at some point in the future, there will be a technology available that allows us to control or to, I guess, seal off the complex of Fukushima. That is not the case today. And this water has been spilling into the ocean for, oh, good Lord, years now.
Yeah, that's true.
Millions and millions of liters of contaminated water, to the point that the contamination is really quite bad. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that the U.S. is taking steps to stop the import of Japanese goods. I don't know if that's true.
Oh, I don't know either. I wanted to put this out there that the water that they're releasing, they're incapable of preventing the release of. Right?
So, here we go.
It has.
This is from the Wall Street Journal. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, go on.
This is 2 days ago. Here we go. More countries ban import of Japanese foods. Okay, this is from the 24th of 8th, which is a couple of days ago, a Thursday, from the Wall Street Journal. Blah, blah, blah. Singapore, with more countries detecting radioactive contamination in food imported from Japan, efforts to prevent it spreading through the global food chain have gained a new urgency. On Friday, Taiwan and South Korea joined the list of countries that have banned the import of food produced in the provinces worst hit by the crisis at the Fukushima nuclear plant. Taiwan was among the first to detect mild levels of radiation in fava beans, etc., etc. And we got South Korea here. The country's Food and Drug Administration will continue testing, which is in South Korea. Singapore also is stopping. New Zealand is also testing, testing Japanese food for signs of contamination. Other countries have, other countries that have imposed restrictions on food imports from Japan include Australia and the United States. So that's actually the thing.
Wow. Did you know, in the water that they're not capable of preventing the release of, they've filtered everything out, they said. And then you go, well, everything? Question mark? And they go, well, not everything, but you said everything. Yeah, except for tritium. We can't seem, it's too small. We can't seem to filter that out. That's well, we're not magicians. Yeah? And you go, okay, so how bad is tritium? Well, it's extremely rare radioisotope, right? Isotopes, H3, if you want to know what that means. And it's got a 12-year half-life. But that doesn't mean that in 12 years it's radioactive free. It just means that it's reduced by a half. That's all it means. So, if someone says 250,000 year half-life, wow, you're talking millions of years before you can get to a point where it'd be safe. Same as this. This is 12 years, so you could probably look at a couple of generations before it could hopefully turn into deuterium, which is H2. Anyway, let's move on. So the tritium, what does it do? It actually destroys DNA.
It's not good.
So that's good. Oh, no, you said it's not good. It is, yes. Okay, so no, that's not good.
Decidedly.
Decidedly not good. Right? Now, Japan says we've tested the water around Fukushima after this, this incapable of stopping the release of this water, and because they just don't have any more places to put it. What Japan is really wanting to do is develop the area now and put houses back there. But that's kind of hard to do when the groundwater is tritium laced. So yeah, good luck.
We don't want people with tentacles.
No. Well, yeah, like if you had, I don't know, if you really liked, I don't know, chicken wings, right? And you had a chicken that had 20 wings,
Oh,
now
sweet.
you're talking.
Huh?
I know, right? But the fact that Japan is a great consumer of seafood, and I would only imagine, and this is through some conversations that I have with my friend, who's rested up currently in hospital, and my thoughts go out to you, buddy, and I hope you get well really quickly. And that is, we might see the increased fishing outside of their normal, what do you call it? Oh, the zones that they're assigned
Oh, the
to.
territorial waters.
Yeah, they call it, what's it, like a financial zone around their countries, everyone's country.
Yeah, it's the exclusion zone. That's
Yeah. Well, there's I think that, you know, if your fishermen have to go further and further away, you've taken too many. That's just the way that is. I think that's the magic of life there. So, yeah, Mackie, that was really disappointing news to hear. I heard that they were going to release it. They were going to open up the valves. That's what I heard in the news. But,
right.
you know. But I have to say, I'm going to say something else positive.
Yeah.
Did you know tritium is actually what they want now to have as the EV charger market. They want to do stuff with it there, and lighting and a whole bunch of really cool things. So,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, maybe they'll be mining the ocean for that soon.
Yeah, good for them.
It'll be in the with the you know, the forever chemicals and the forever particles.
Oh yeah.
It'll be just there. It'll be there.
Yeah, it'll be
Will-
it's good.
Will it be like Waterworld, where we grow lungs during our own life?
How good would that be? Huh?
Lungs, no, gills.
Gills. Yeah,
Gills.
no, phenomenal. I think
Yeah.
it'd be
I'm sure you
phenomenal.
heard gills. I said lungs, but it's all right. That's what I meant.
Well, I heard gills. Yeah. No, it's all good. That would be phenomenal. I would love that. Just go, hey, Gilly. Yeah, that's me, baby. I'm going deep sea diving. No, it is a serious thing. And the problem, of course, is that it was a significant breach with significant release of radioactive material. And
That's right.
the unfortunate thing with radioactive material is the half-life is fairly long, thousands of years. So that's an issue.
So, did you know that the internet's been astroturfed with tritium now?
Oh,
AstroTurf,
really?
yeah, because
It's a light source.
yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I sent you. So it's like, is it market poised to reach 8.6 billion? Like, woohoo! Look at this stuff. This is great.
More tritium. Let's put it in the water supply. That's what. What? No,
Maybe
that's
I
not
can
what I
make.
meant.
I'll be self-illuminating. That's what I'll be.
Hey, if it makes money, it must be good for you. So let's eat it. Let's sprinkle it on the Kellogg's, on the cornflakes. Let's do that.
Can you believe that we've hit the end of the hour?
Go away already.
I
Jeez.
know, right?
Very quick, man.
That's a look. Thank you for listening to the first hour of Shiny Side Out. In the next hour, we'll be talking about. Can you believe this already? Lost Scientists and Science Part 2. I think. So we'll see you then. Take the time to donate, and I'll catch you on the other side of the break.